Hey, Cotton!
Yes, Chief? What is it?
This is your new son.
What?
I've decided that you will adopt him.
No, that's not how that is. Papa?
You can't say no, he's right there.
This is not okay!
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, earlier this week I've embarked on a journey. I set sail to an old land to experience firsthand the glory that is the old world hunting. My first Monster Hunter game was Monster Hunter World, after which I had gone back to play Generations Ultimate. But there has always been a part of me that wanted to go further back, and further down. That's right, I've decided to dive headfirst into Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. And I thought what better way to bring all of you in on my journey than a little bit of a discussion on my progress and my thoughts on the game so far. Quite literally, I'm going to give you my first impressions on a game that released 7 years ago. Underwater combat will be talked about, don't worry, I know it's the elephant in the room, but I wanted to start with something a little bit broader. Something that affects my experience with the game even more than that. The soundtrack. I'll admit to it playing in the background of this whole video, but I just absolutely adore it. There is something that feels so familiar yet so unique about it. Like it is so clearly the same Monster Hunter feel and inspiration that I'm used to, but themed around this land and its particular aesthetic and feel, and something about it is just so much more compelling to me than the New World soundtrack, at least as far as the early game goes. The village theme I absolutely love, and that is so important to nail, really, and so far every monster or map theme that I've heard has really captured my attention even while I'm in the middle of hunting things, which is a great sign to me. Secondarily, the graphics. This game came out in 2013, and it is absolutely stunning when you consider that fact. Honestly, it's still gorgeous today, as long as you can respect the technology that they had to work with. The individual skylines of the maps and the skybox pictures are all such beautiful artwork that really stopped me in my tracks each time I walked into a new zone. There was always something I really wanted to look a little bit closer at. It's stylistic as all hell, and I love how vivid the colors are. That's something I really feel World lost. If nothing else, I wish the game was as bright and colorful as the old World, because it just makes everything look so much more interesting and detailed. Like, take Barroth. He's orange. In the New World, I would swear on my life that he's just a muddy shade of brown, but here you can see the individual folds of his scales so clearly, and it's obvious where any mud is on him, and I love all of it so much.
Peekaboo!
To describe where I am in the game at this point, so you have a point of reference for my thoughts, I am just before the Gobule fight, having just defeated Royal Ludroth and our good friend Barroth, who I just showed you, so I'm still very early in my journey. I've fought literally one monster underwater, and my opinions are liable to change as I progress and learn and adapt, but these are my raw initial thoughts. Movement is weird. It's harder, not just underwater, but as a whole, it feels like you have just literally less directional control, and in some cases you just literally do have less directional control, such as many weapons with combos where in the New World you can just turn and adjust your aim between attacks. You're a bit more locked to your initial angle in this game, so you have to strike super deliberately. Secondary to this is the camera itself. I don't know if this is specific to the Wii U version of the game, but my camera was just moving vertically only in stages when I was on land. Like, it wasn't a consistent pan upwards or downwards while I was holding it up or down, it would just go in chunks every time I tapped upwards. But underwater worked normally, so my controller isn't the issue. I just know that it's something that will take me time to adapt to. But then underwater is where things get really interesting, because there's a specific system in place that I think is both ingenious and flawed at the same time, depending on your point of view. And that is that your attacks take place in this 3D space relative to where your camera is pointing. If you do an undercut slash aiming forwards, it will be in front of you. If you do an undercut slash aiming upwards, it will be above you and go all the way over to behind you, not in front of you. What this does is give you a really staggering amount of control over your attacks and where they will hit if you know the direction they come out at, while also making it really incredibly difficult to actually aim them, especially if you don't know where they're going to come from, because you need to work the left stick, the right stick, and the attack button simultaneously. Otherwise, you will either miss the attack or not be positioned right or miss a button in your combo. You have to manage all three. As for the movement itself, I did feel it a little bit rough with the recovery frames between dodges underwater, and as well it felt super weird that after an attack the input that would normally be a forward roll is instead an upward jump, and the backward roll input is now actually a downward burst. Again, this is a really cool feature that just adds to the movement and lets them design monster attacks in a more vertical way, but it is a major adjustment from rolling forward and backwards on land. As well, I find it super weird that you only do this after an attack. You still roll forward and backwards if you're not attacking. I'd much prefer if it was just consistent and dodging those directions underwater did the same thing, or even more preferably, have a different input for forward and backward dodging than up and down dodging. That way the player has full control at any movement and can actually choose which one they want to use. But that's just not the way it is, and it's not unusable by any means. It's not despicable, it's not bad, it's just odd. And while I think it will take me time to get used to, it is still nothing compared to adjusting to the amount of camera precision that you just need underwater, especially with the layout of the Wii U controller compared to like a PlayStation controller. Look at them for a moment. Look where the buttons and the sticks are. I am legitimately finding new muscles in my hand trying to learn underwater combat right now. As far as weapons themselves, I am not yet committed to a main yet until I get some weapons with higher than yellow sharpness, but Hammer has left me really unenthused for some reason so far. Maybe it's coming from New World Hammer and its smoothness and how well it flows, and coming back to this just heavy brick of a weapon, especially once I started moving underwater with it. Given that your main attacks with this weapon in this game are the charged attacks, moving underwater felt like you literally had a ball of cement tied to your foot. And being the person I am, I decided that was a good moment to pick up another weapon, at least for the meantime. All the weapons and their combos and everything are different than what I'm used to in the New World, and even different from how they worked in Generations Ultimate, which I've also played. So I had a lot of messing around to do to actually understand how they felt. And I admit I did kill a pretty high number of great Jaggies early on to work it out. I settled on the Switch Axe, which I love the brutal simplicity of in this game. There is no more powering up the axe like there is in Iceborne. There is no more powering up the sword in general. And the only sword attacks that you have are a slower combo, a faster combo that can transform attack back into axe mode, or a zero-sum discharge, which is exclusively reserved for larger periods of downtime. The weapon is literally just managing one singular bar of power. You use it up by doing sword attacks or a zero-sum discharge, and it refills slowly over time when your weapon is sheathed or in axe mode. So the only real management is trying to make effective use of your sword mode power, keeping it active when there is power and not overusing it while you have it. Otherwise, you have a lot of long-reaching attacks with relatively short recovery frames, and something about playing it in this game just feels so smooth, so simple, but not in an easy way, so much as just a correct way. It feels like it just fits the pace of the gameplay perfectly. The mobility, the reach, and the balance of swapping between modes makes it a very rhythmic experience that I've so far enjoyed a lot. I guess it makes sense. This was, after all, the generation that the weapon was introduced, so its base design was created around the balance of this game and the way that it works. But then I thought, anime! Longsword was another one on my list of contenders, but maybe it's just my New World Hunter brain speaking, but I feel so ineffective without Foresight Slash, especially because you can't really re-aim the spirit combo attacks after the first one, so the full combo is incredibly hard to hit on a monster that isn't downed or otherwise incapacitated, which means that it's really hard to level up your spirit gauge, and I just rarely spend any time in the higher power gauges, which makes me feel like I'm terrible at the weapon, which, to be fair, I am. The saving grace of Longsword that I felt was underwater. The first X-button attack underwater, instead of being an overhead slash, is a forward propelling underhand slash, which is essentially just a long-range movement option that also attacks, and that's pretty cool to me. I guess it's also worth mentioning that I don't have a perfect understanding of any of these weapons, not the ones that I've mentioned, not the ones that I didn't mention. And if there is anything that I sound like I'm missing, feel free to tell me in the comments. I want to learn, I want to get better, and I want to know what I'm doing. And hell, if there is a weapon that you would be willing to die for in this game, something that you legitimately believe is the undisputed, most enjoyable experience possible to you, then try and sell me on it. Tell me why you love that weapon so much in this game and why you think I would enjoy playing it throughout the game, and I might even switch to that. In my mind, I'm sticking with Switch Axe for the moment, but considering I haven't even unlocked a stronger Switch Axe than the base one that I can craft before getting Gobule materials, I'm definitely not committed quite yet. And that's about it so far. I'm absolutely loving my time with it, but lord does it feel harder on a moment-to-moment basis. Like, I feel like I'm hitting attacks and doing fantastic dodges and still running out of feeling by the end of the hunt, just because I'm having such a hard time grasping the general movement. I still haven't carded yet though, so I'm holding on to that one. As for the continuation of my journey, we'll be making videos on each of the special monsters that I've not fought firsthand before this game as I reach them, starting with the Gobule. Outside of that, I'll probably be doing a couple more of these types of discussion videos as I move on, and past that, I will be streaming most of the time that I play the game over on my Twitch channel. Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the Kingdom Animalia. Rage, Continent, Hollow, we're all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros, there's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.